Welcome back. It's time for Press Review, and joining the discussion is Mark Bichachi, who's a communication consultant. We have Philip Magal, a lawyer and lecturer, as well as Joy Brenda Midiwo, who is an advocate. Welcome to the show, gents and lady. Now, I wish you were sitting in the middle so that you could be even, but it's okay.
It's a manwich.
Yeah, it's a manwich. Yeah, it was unwritten, but it's okay. It's okay. Now, let's start off with a very positive story, which is also the basis of our Twitter poll question. You're asking you, do you have any goodwill messages for Eliud Kipchoge as he prepares for that historic 159 challenge that he's given himself? And we'll be sampling those views throughout the show. But of course, this is making big news across the headline. We have a special pullout on the Standard, and it's all about Eliud Kipchoge and goes deeper into it. It's an in-depth look at the Kipchoge historic 159 race. That's the Standard. And on The Nation, the same story is making headlines. Daring the gods, Kipchoge chases immortality. I'll start with you, Bichachi. What's your take on this one?
I think this is a critical moment in the history of not only sport, but of us as a nation.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, for me, already makes him a hero is the fact that he's willing to attempt this. And that, for me, is already something that Kenyans should celebrate. I don't think we need to wait for 159. Just the fact that one of our own is doing that is something that is to be celebrated. And one of the things that I hope, and I am sure I will see it very soon, is the agency that is in charge of branding taking advantage of this moment to celebrate Kenyan heroes and to celebrate those who are making a difference in this country. And I think this is a moment, especially since Mashujaa Day is around the corner, where we need to consider who the Shujaas are. And I hope that people who are known for lining up with Githeri will drop off the map, and people who are running at below 2 are now elevated. And we need to find within our country who are the other people who are doing extraordinary things. For example, can we find a police officer who's not corrupt? Can we find a procurement officer who's not corrupt, and celebrate them the same way we're celebrating Kipchoge? And I hope, and my prayers, my hopes, and my dreams are with him, that he's able to do 158, in fact.
In fact, even better. Yeah, and I love that you pointed out the branding thing, because the way they have approached this is, maybe it's because he's backed by big money, but clearly the way he's been branded and the way the whole media buzz around him is being packaged. I remember when he went to London and he drew the curtains, it just gave you chills. And it was simple little things like that just make it more professional, because I look at some of our celebrities and people who deserve to be celebrated, and they're off just doing things that are nowhere near the things that they accomplished during their time as renowned athletes. And I feel like we need to do better by our athletes, and this is a move in the right direction. Don't you agree, Mr. Magal?
I do agree, and indeed I'm inspired. I believe many people in the world are inspired by his attempt to break the 2-minute barrier. This tells the power that sports hold, not just for this country, but the world over. And it's really neglected. Look at football, look at rugby. Some of these players are struggling, and it means that this country, has so much talent. This is one of us going to attempt something unimaginable. I've seen people doing their calculations, and it's like he has to sprint throughout like Usain Bolt from the first kilometer to the 42nd. I believe he will break this record. I look forward to him breaking this record. And personally, I adopt his personal philosophy to try work without the thought of limitation, take on challenges, and be the best I can be. And Kenya and Kenyans should adopt that philosophy.
Yes, and we, in the absence of any, sort of ethos, that we should, maybe these are the things that should be highlighted more and more to make us look forward to look at them and emulate that and use them as ways of, doing our things in whatever field we are in. He did say he's going to Vienna to show the journalists, to show the teachers, to show everyone.
To show the lawyers.
To show the lawyers.
We are not limited.
Yeah, we are not limited, Joy.
And where Mark started is where I was hoping he would start, because when you're talking about Brand Kenya, Mark is right in the mix. And this week for me was, I have ragged on them because this was such a missed opportunity. He has been preparing for most of this year.
He has.
He has skipped major meets, sacrificed a lot of prize money, appearance money. He's the sort of guy, even if you just turn up, wave, start, and drop out and go home, you're getting paid for it.
Sure.
But he has stayed focused. He has trained with elite athletes. He has paid such a huge price to try and beat this record. It's one of those things where, forget about the big money sponsorship and everything. He himself has put so much into it that we as Kenyans could have capitalized on it by just celebrating him.
That is it.
And just highlighting it. I mean, how is it that now, like about 1 week to the games is when people are even hearing that there's a 159, 159.
Yeah.
It's almost mind-boggling.
Should have been a bigger deal.
Yes, I went to Eldoret, and every Nduthi, every M-Pesa shop, everybody had the sticker, Ineos, Ineos, Ineos. And I was like, now this right here is the mood, and I think that's what infected me, because by the time I came back, I changed my profile picture, I did. Because as Kenyans, we ought to be extremely proud of what he's attempting. Whether he gets it, whether he does not, is not the point. He's the first man who has actually made an attempt at it. We need to be aware that this, because it's an attempt at a world record, it's not really, at a Guinness Book of Records, not really an IAAF event. So it won't be classified really as a world record. So his world record of 2.01 is what's going to stand. But if he breaks it, then everybody will be anticipating his next real marathon, saying, you know what, let's see if he has no athletes flanking him to guard him from the wind, if he has no laser beam car, and he still do it? Was it a fluke? But in my mind, it will be like what we used to say about a man running a mile under 10 seconds. It used to be impossible. And then these days, people are running the 100 meters in under 10 seconds. It's commonplace now. But there's a time when we used to think Carl Lewis and his 11 seconds was like the best thing since sliced bread. So I'm so incredibly proud of him. I'm really praying for him and rooting for him. But I also am with the rest of the panelists saying, you know what, even I am inspired to say, you know what, sometimes it's in the mind. It's mind over matter. And we need to really apply ourselves, just go beyond. Despite our limitations, just try and go beyond.
And Trix, you know, I really, really hope that my country can adopt that mentality. Because we have a problem in this country of setting goals we doubt ourselves. That's the thing about Kenyans. Whatever it is. Like, I'll give you an example. The other day, the PS Singer was showing the Park Road buildings. And my goodness, are they beautiful. Oh my goodness. They look so nice. But Kenyans will not tweet about it. But when he was saying it will be done, we tweeted all the day long how it will not be done, it will be full of corruption. And that's the thing, that Kenyans are the biggest hindrances to themselves. When we set goals as a country, we keep saying, you know, SGR is a good example. You know, people keep saying that SGR should make money. And I ask myself, there is a road that is tarmac that leads to my house. Is my house a factory? When my kids leave their house, are they making profit? We need to understand that infrastructure is built for us to become limitless. That infrastructure is built for us to use it. Now, if it's going to make profit, guess who's going to use it to make profit? How can you blame the government? Does the government have cargo to ship?
It's you to use it.
It is us to literally use it. And I hope as a country, this moment just allows us to realize that we can set goals and actually achieve them, and to be a singer for doing an excellent job. And by the way, no corruption, manenos, no even rumors about it, door handles supplied by Kenyans, nails by Kenyans, you know, well done.
Executed. So as a reminder, we're telling you, get on Twitter and send your goodwill messages to Eliud Kipchoge as he tries to attempt to break this record, or rather achieve this challenge that he has set up. And of course, we are all looking forward to that particular race. Get to read the papers that are going in depth depth. They're going hard on this one. The Standard has a whole pull-out on it, and The Nation, that is the top page on it, and the branding is spectacular, as we have said, and hopefully this points to a better thing to our celebrities, particularly our athletes that are making us proud the world over. But let's shift gears to other stories. We have the big war in Uhuru's State House. This is a top story on The Standard. You're told all the president's men. Trouble is brewing in Uhuru's kitchen cabinet. Chief of Staff Nzioka Waita is a man under siege as Kinyua's succession battle gets personal and dirty for the aides. And the more on that story, as you can see on your screen right there, is on page 4 of The Standard. Get to read that and just get to learn more about this particular fallout, as it has been termed. What do you make of this, Mr. Bichachi?
Well, the truth of the matter is that inheriting Joseph Kinyua, if indeed that is what is happening, is a tall order.
Right.
Because the head of civil public service is literally the person who delivers on the government agenda and keeps the whole thing coherent.
Yeah.
Now, the question is of the people who are running and gunning for this position, is who has the ability to pull the civil service together. There has been a rumor that what the good president needs is a Michuki, you know, is an ambassador, Mudaura. And indeed, if Kinyua is retiring, and we thank him and commend him for good service when he was at finance, good service as a senior public servant today, but we must now focus as a laser and ask ourselves who has the capacity to deliver for this country.
Yes.
Let's not hope for chronism, let's not hope for favoritism, let's hope for delivery. And that's what, if this is happening, should be the focus of this country. And of course, the credentials of being not corrupt, credentials of having delivered on promises, but most critically, what this country needs is discipline.
Sure.
And within public service. You know, when you look at things, when the president says that people should have been paid all their dues by July, was it, and it's still not been done, then the head of public service needs to be the kind of person who will be at your door asking you, why haven't you paid people? And that's what we need, someone who's an enforcer for the president. That's what is the bottom line.
Absolutely. What do you think, Mr. Magas?
I think for me, at the end of it all, these people hold the office at the behest of the president. At the end of it, it is the president to decide who takes up that particular position.
Yes.
So I really don't see what the jostling is all about. But now that it's the focal point seems to be Mr. Moita, it speaks a lot. It tells you that he must be the one on the pivotal position. He's the one on the pole position and probably the one marked to take it over. I think so far he's delivered. I think so far he's been an astute, he's proved himself an astute public servant. We've seen the efficiency in the office of the president greatly improved since he took over.
Yes.
If that is anything to go by, then I think he's the best man for the job.
Absolutely, but of course they had great difficulty in trying to ascertain some of the allegations here. We're having quotes of everybody who was contacted saying, no, this is not, others saying, this is not my docket. Others were asking, why can't you just call Kinyua and ask him whether he's retiring? It was quite, I do not envy the reporters.
And that's why when I read the article, just quickly skimming through it as you were coming towards me, I was wondering, why is this even headlines?
The top
Nothing
story
is confirmed. We don't even know if Kenya is going.
Exactly.
I mean, we've just seen the KRA chairman get his tenure extended. And Mudaura is like, what? I don't even know.
72 or something.
But here he is being given another extension.
Right.
Kenya might just very well be given the same. I mean, it's one of those stories where maybe there is somebody who wants it out there so that the president is forced to say something, or somebody is forced to say something. And if that's what they're gunning for, then all the best, because everybody seems to be saying nothing.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing new.
Right.
Anytime you're in the West Wing, or you're in Buckingham, not even Buckingham, 10 Downing Street, or there's somebody else just waiting in the wings for you to go. Even here in Kenya, we sit and look at Gazette notices, who has finished their tenure, what has been declared vacant. I mean, the Kenya Gazette is one of those things where some of us never miss reading, so that if you see an opportunity, you know whether you're starting to apply or to lobby. That's the Kenyan way. And for somebody to become as powerful as head of public service, Nzioka Waita right now is sort of pigeonholed in State House. This is a job that is of national profile. So you would expect, I don't even know why guns are being trained at Nzioka, because you'd expect it would be people who have got enough experience in public service and enough stature to carry this forward. Like Mark said, you need a certain caliber of leader to sort of push this position through. So why they're training their guns at Nzioka, unless they're looking at it as an opportunity to get him out as well, so that we've got 2 vacant spots at the same time. But that said, there are some pretty strong contenders for that job anyway. And I'm seeing some of the faces over there, but one would also wonder, why now? Just wait until it's certain that, I mean, you know, it's so awkward when people are planning your funeral and they're still alive. I mean, can they at least give you a chance to finish? They do a little party and send you off. Then now you declare it's open duck season. But I guess it's the Kenyan way. But whether it's a big war, whether Nzioka is on a sabbatical, some of those things, I think, just give it time. Let's see how it plays out.
And it definitely will, because the term is obviously in its sunset period. Now, the Daily Nation is leading the Jubilee Rift, Ruto Tuju feud over poor. And we're told Deputy President moved to announce party elections set early next year. It stirs up hornet's nest in the ruling party, which the Secretary General saying, with the Secretary General saying the National Executive Council can call for the votes, and members of the Kieleweki camp accusing the DP of staging a coup. That is on page 5. There are more details on that story. And this is nothing new. We have been told about this rift that has been stirred up by that upcoming political event. But I don't know, what do you feel like this is relevant in terms of, you know, the political happenings in the country?
You know, I keep saying on this show, and I'll continue to say it, that any time when it makes news in your house that your father and mother are meeting, then you know that there is trouble in the union. Now, let's look at the facts. The facts are that it is a good political practice to hold party elections. Party democracy is a critical part of moving a party forward. In fact, if Jubilee is to survive as a party, it needs to be able to show that it has internal democracy. Now, the problem here that portends is that there is camps clearly within Jubilee. And these camps are causing strife among themselves. In fact, Jubilee is now officially the party in power and the party in opposition at the same time. It must be congratulated. It must be some form of record. And that said, you realize that Jubilee is a party that is busy developing the country and then is busy campaigning for 2022 at the same time. So in such a party, when you are saying that you're going to have elections the next year, the question that people begin to ask themselves within the party is which party is having elections? Because clearly there are 2 parties. Is the party that is focused on development and listening to the president, is it that one that is having elections? Or is it the 2022 Jubilee that is having elections? Now, for as long as that question remains unanswered, then there will be those who are pushing for an election and those who are holding back from an election. My advice to Jubilee as a party is, I think both parties need to have an election. They need to have an election, and both sides need to campaign so hard so that now for once we have an identity that belongs to Jubilee. This is what I mean. If the people who want to campaign for 2022 are the ones who vastly win an open and fair party election, then we know Jubilee is a 2022 party. But if the people who want to focus on the legacy, focus on development, win that particular election, then we know that this is a party that is bent on delivering for the people. I think that is what should happen. But are intra-party elections free and fair in this country? I don't know whether the men in black will make a resurgence only on a different party this time.
There will be a sequel to that. Now, we're told that this row comes after the CS said DP was not the automatic 2022 flag bearer.
I think the DP is getting very many people worried. To me, it's doing all the right things at the right time. basically these people are hoping that they would frustrate him and probably push him out of Jubilee. But he's taking the fight to them. You can see he's a step ahead. In Kibra, they hoped that he wouldn't field a candidate.
And
he's been able to, and he's giving ODM a run for its money. Now, ODM is crying foul. Here he's talking of an election within Jubilee. Basically, if he goes, the elections are conducted with his, the way he operates. He will take most of the slots and he will take over Jubilee. And that is what he needs to focus on. Some people have argued that he probably needs to bolt out of Jubilee, but no, this is his house, he's built it, and he has every right to claim it. And it would serve him really well if elections are held and he's able to assert his authority within it. Going into 2022, I think so many people should be worried. Many people should be spending sleepless night, because otherwise this man will ascend to that big office come 2022. Because, you know, just look at all the things that he's doing. As much as he's a man under siege, you wouldn't tell it.
Yeah.
He's continually pushing, he's focused on his agenda, and, you know, Tuju is only reacting to what he said. And Tuju should be the one to call the elections. Why is he being upstaged?
Absolutely. And on the same page 5, Tuju is making headlines, but in a different story. It says, twist in city assembly fallout as Tuju writes to EACC on scaffold. So I feel like he should be more on the first story than on this other one that's on the scaffold. What do you feel about it, Joy?
Yeah, and I must agree with my fellow panelists. Jubilee wouldn't be in this bind if they had more internal party discipline. Because since the merger of all the parties to make Jubilee, they started with interim officials. Then they spent some time and resourced the ouster of some, Kina Veronica Maina, get out of the way, and in come Raphael Tuju. And there was this, you know, positioning, and we're told now this will give us some stability before we actually do the elections. Then people went in and sat and just didn't move the process forward. When the wrangles in Jubilee started, some of us are on record having said, you know what, maybe the president ought to call a PG, maybe the party ought to start reading from the same script, but it just didn't happen. People were allowed to run amok. Everybody was allowed to cut a piece of Jubilee that they liked and run away with it. The SG got on cabinet as a minister without portfolio, so that also puts an extra shackle on him, because forget about you being a general secretary, like, you know, Edwin Sifuna, you're a free agent, you can do whatever. But now he is in cabinet. So he also has this extra constraint. You get to a place where you realize Jubilee is doing this to itself. It's cannibalizing itself. Mark says they're in power and in opposition at the same time. That is true. But they're also the ones who are taking the knife and stabbing themselves repeatedly. I mean, nobody has to do that for them. But there's also the angle that has just been brought out that, you know what, in all this, there's been one constant. There's this guy who's decided, you know what, I have got this focus and I'm marching towards it. Now, he's the one who's causing all the jitters. And right now, even if they decide to go to elections, look at how all the formations are. You have a chairman who seems to be on this side and you have a deputy who seems to be on this side. So there's no clear cut that this is how it's going to happen. Should both Jubilees have elections? I'm not even sure that that is a thing. But one thing that I wish Jubilee would do as a favor is just sit down and hunker down and get on with delivering for the next 2-3 years of your mandate. Because these wrangles are not serving anybody any favors. And at the end of the day, it is your tenure that is being squandered. Like you said, look at now the Secretary General. He's often a frolic of his own, and yet there is fire at home. Sometimes I look and I'm like, I mean, priorities. We need to have something that, even if it's not fit for purpose for 2022, that's what we have in power now. Make it work now. Because if we keep relying on the handshake, ODM don't have the mandate to deliver. It is you guys who are in power. They are the minority party. Their function is mostly in parliament. But in the executive, it is squarely Jubilee. So if this term is a failure, it's a failure for President Uhuru and a failure for DP Ruto. None of them wins. So on this score, they need to get their act together. Because at the end of the day, even if you want to run in 2022, if there's no track record now, guess what? You'll not say that was Uhuru's failure. We'll be asking you in your government, this has not happened. Like I've seen in the Standard, talk about some dying towns and some people who are, we will be telling you, look at these images.
Yeah, true.
How can you defend this? This is also your track record. So they better just, you don't have to like each other, but you need to work together.
Represent a united
But you know,
front.
Kenyans don't vote on basis of track record. Okay?
Well, we would hope that our democracy is maturing in that direction.
Look at all the people in the office. What track records do they have?
Touché.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's true, but
what has my MP ever done? The guy's been in the office for 15 years.
And we still keep voting him.
Yes.
Who your MP is?
Let me not even
It shall
mention.
remain a name.
But you see what he's saying is actually a very credible thing. Because you must ask yourself, the Jubilee Party in campaigning and in opposition, you keep asking yourself, how do you campaign to do the thing you're supposed to be doing now? You know, it's like you campaigning for the job you have. I am going to host the show.
In fact,
you know,
I would argue that the ODM should be preoccupied with 2022 rather than...
Yes, and that's a funny thing. And you see, ODM, weirdly, in minority, without any cabinet position, ODM seems more focused on the delivery of the promises of Jubilee than Jubilee is. I find it incredible. Like, seriously, if you listen to ODM MPs, they are so loyal to this Big Four thing, so loyal to this handshake thing, so focused. They are so focused. They're like, the country needs to deliver on Big Four. The handshake must stand. We must make sure the country is united. You listen to Jubilee, you wonder what is wrong with you people. When the port of Big Four was stood in your house, when all these agendas were stood in your house, unity is a Jubilee thing. Jubilee is the one for Tuko Pamoja. It is not ODM, but
ODM is the Wakombele.
Let me tell you, Jubilee should do us all a favor.
Right.
Imagine we all agree that Big Four is a good idea. Imagine we all do. Imagine we all agree that uniting the country is a good idea. And even more, we all agree that fighting corruption is a good idea. But if you hear the people who are against the fight against corruption, they are all Banan in Jubilee. All the ones who say it is tribal, all the ones who say it is targeted are in Jubilee. Surely. Please give us a break. And I'm begging.
Let's focus on some of the right issues for once, and particularly Jubilee, because this is their thing anyway. Now, I love that you pointed out this story about the ghost towns in central Kenya, because that's where I'm going. We're told that prosperous no more, that is the subhead, and they were once vibrant economies throbbing with life thanks to coffee, tea, and dairy sectors, but today they are dying slowly for lack of activity. And you can see it's a whole spread on page 6 and 7, those dying town. And you can see from the pictures, the youth that are just sitting around. Nothing is happening in these deserted towns. For example, Kabeche Market in Mary County. We have Mutuwewathi Trading Center in Mkreini, Nyeri, and we also have youth being pictured in Kirinyaga East Sub-County, literally doing nothing, just sitting around across different towns in central Kenya. And of course, this points to a larger economic problem. And Mark, when you see this sort of story, what do you think in terms of legacy, the economy, and what is not being done by the government?
You know, I think to myself that in England today, there's a guy who's having a cuppa of English tea. In that England of his, there is not a single tea bush. In every cup of English tea, a third of it must be Kenyan tea.
Yeah.
For you to blend good tea, you need Kenyan tea. For you to make nice coffee, you need some Kenyan coffee. Now, across the pond in Rwanda, the tea and coffee farmers are laughing all the way to the bank. Their towns are not ghost towns anymore. You must ask yourself, what is the problem? The problem in this country is not that we don't have good tea or good products. The problem in this country is the person who does not plant the tea nor the coffee makes the most money. That's where the problem is. That we have robbed the cow that gives us the milk We've taken its blood, we've taken its milk, and we've refused to feed it enough for it to continue to sustain itself.
Yeah.
It is funny to me that you will see tea being sold across the world, but the Kenyan farmer who plants it is broke. That is a logical misnomer. It tells you that there's something fundamentally wrong with how we do tea and coffee.
Yeah.
And the problem is not with the farmer. The problem is with KTDA, the auction,
Yeah.
and the system they've created around it. And when they say that, oh yes, internationally we still give the best prices,
Yes.
that's not the model people are using. The reason why Sri Lanka and all these countries can survive is because they hedge on their tea.
Yeah, and they were our competitors,
Yes.
but now we have a problem with
Yes.